God controls, causes, or predetermines good events as well as evil events. This idea is shocking to many people who profess to be Christians, but who are woefully ignorant of the Bible. At the same time, many of these same people deny God controls all good. Their notion of God is bizarre. If they admit that God is omniscient, and some of them deny even this, they still hold that many good events occur quite independently of God. The most important class of good events that God does not control are, say these people, the events of faith, acceptance of Christ, regeneration, conversion. The salvation of men, say these people, is beyond God's control. To show how anti-Christian these sentiments are, we turn to Scripture. The first passage is Romans 8:28 through 30, which reads, "And we know that all things work together for good to them that love God, to them that are called according to his purpose. For whom he did foreknow, he also did predestinate to be conformed to the image of his Son, that he might be the firstborn among many brethren. Moreover, whom he did predestinate, them he also called. And whom he called, them he also justified. And whom he justified, them he also glorified." The passage begins with the universal proposition that all things work together. That is to say, every detail of history, whether in Babylonia, Egypt, or the United States, fits into a comprehensive design. Nothing can be omitted. All things work together. Rather clearly, it is God who works them together. True, the verse does not explicitly say that God works all things, but in the context of the Bible, the meaning cannot be that all things are independent of divine control, and through dead mechanism fit together for the purpose next stated. If all things were the controlling force, a complete atheism would be asserted. For the phrase all things is the Greek term meaning the universe. If the universe controls its details, there is no room for God. In the theistic or biblical sense, therefore, all things conspire for the good of those who love God. It would be remarkable, would it not, if the naturalistic universe mechanically conspired for the good of a certain group of people? But this all-inclusive design is not absurd when God is in control and determines every detail for the good of those he has chosen, of those whom he has elected, of those whom he has called according to his deliberate purpose. God chose certain people on purpose, and he works every detail of the universe for their good. The ostensible tragedy of Christ's crucifixion was intended for their good. Nero, the papacy, Napoleon, and Stalin conspired to benefit the elect. And even the fall of a sparrow, God determines everything. Inasmuch as the last chapter said so much about God's causing evil events, it is worthwhile to point out now that these evil events are for the good of his saints. God causes evil, God also causes good, and God causes the evil as a means of blessing his people. The verse now gives a general explanation of God's design. Whom God foreknew, he predestinated. In the discussion of Isaiah 46:10, it was pointed out that foreknowledge is not a matter of looking into the future and discovering what is there. God knows the future because he has determined it. Furthermore, foreknowledge in its biblical usage refers more to good events than to evil events. This is not to deny God's omniscience, nor even his universal control. It refers merely to literary usage. Psalms 1:6 makes the contrast that God knows the way of the righteous, but the way of the wicked shall perish. Then too there is Amos chapter 3 verse 2. You only have I known of all the families of the earth. Here the verb to know means to choose or select. Obviously it is not a denial of omniscience. Therefore those people whom God foreknew, chose, and selected are precisely the individuals whom he predestinated. The Greek verb can equally well be translated predestinate or predetermine. The direct purpose of this predestination is now mentioned. God chose these people to be conformed to the image of his Son. This was, of course, for their good, but it was also a part of Christ's glory, for it made him the firstborn among many brethren. Predestination is, of course, an act of God in eternity. That its design should be accomplished in time, God called precisely those people whom he had predetermined to be conformed to the image of Christ. This calling is not the preaching of the gospel, though it occurs in conjunction with that preaching. Evangelists give a call, an external call, but God gives an internal and irresistible call. For this reason precisely, the same individuals whom were chosen are now called and justified. In the future, these are the people whom God will glorify. It is the same group of people all the way through. No one is lost along the way. Naturally not, for God works all things for their good. If God be for us, who can be against us? Now this right here is the book that I'm reading from, Gordon H. Clark, Predestination. I would highly recommend that you all would read this book. I may take more sections out of it and read it. I'm not for sure in the future. It just depends on if I find something I really want to share. But I really wish you all would read this, and check the link in the more information box down below.